says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you loving is the one you're loving?
September 16th will be 7 years since Terence Crutcher was shot with his hands up in the air walking away from Betty Jo Shelby, which is so crazy that you say that because I'm actually deposing Betty Jo Shelby Friday.
For what?
You know, the civil case is still going on. It's been 7 years.
Oh, wow.
7 years. So see, this is the type of stuff that happens in these civil cases that people don't realize after the headlines go up, go away and we go to the next case. These cases go on for years and years and years. So the shooting happened September 16, 2016. Betty Shelby was charged. She went to trial in May of 2017. So when we filed our case, they put it on a stay until after the criminal trial. The criminal trial was over in May of 17. We had a little bit of litigation, and then our case got put on a stay in 2019, and it's been on a stay for 4.5 years until this February when a new judge came on it. He kicked out a huge part of our case, and we're going to appeal that, but we can't appeal that until we get all the way through trial against Betty Shelby, the actual shooter. So I'm actually deposing her this Friday, August 18th. So that's amazing that you brought that up.
Wow. She was acquitted in 2007. She was acquitted in 2017. And I think she was in the news recently. Did she get a job somewhere? I feel like she is now a deputy. She's a deputy with the Rogers County Sheriff's Department.
Well, she's left that job now. And Rogers County, just so you know, it's interesting we're talking about this because this lady shot and killed Terrence with his hands up, walking away. And she resigned from TPD after her trial. And then she was hired by the sheriff in Rogers County, which is an adjoining county of Tulsa. So part of Tulsa, the city of Tulsa, is in Rogers County. And he says she's welcome over here. She can come over here and work, and there's no problem. And there was kind of some issues with that. I don't know why she ended up leaving. My understanding is that she is no longer in the state of Oklahoma.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm looking now. But it's just wild. I remember the person that killed Tamir Rice. It's like they get to go, and there's no directory, there's no registry where we, the people, can look to see where these folk are. Like there should be a registry of people who shot Black people who are unarmed.
That's right.
I need to know, or shot anybody for that matter, because to me, any human being is worthy of life, period. And if you're unarmed, you deserve to go to trial. If you are a criminal, you deserve to have due process and not be killed and executed in the streets like a dog. You should not, especially if you're unarmed, which means you're not a threat, because the police are supposed to be trained to take care of people. So you don't have to shoot somebody with ketamine because they are different. If they don't have a weapon and you're not in threat of your life, or you mad because they made you run, so you beat them to death, like all of those folk, there should be a registry. They should never work again as a police officer, period. Oh, you know what, Damario, I'm glad you stuck around because we're going to get to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. But yesterday I talked about these 6 Cretans who tortured 2 Black men. Did you see this case?
I did.
Oh my goodness. So there's there was like some audio that was, reporting on it. And so I wanted to play it because I don't think I gave it justice. Even though these ex-officers pled guilty to torturing, they pled guilty only because they know, right? They know this is Mississippi. Okay, let's play the clips, Ms.
Moments ago, 6 former Mississippi police officers had back in court. They've already pleaded guilty to federal charges of torturing 2 Black men. Well, now they are staring down state charges. Prosecutors say the suspects, all of whom are white, called themselves the Goon Squad because of the excessive force that they've used.
Okay, this has been heart-wrenching for those victims. They, for quite some time, have been trying to get anyone to listen to them about what they experienced on that night. 2 hours of torture. When you think about having oil spilled on your body, eggs thrown at you while you recall the N-word over and over. For quite some time, these men were trying to get someone to pay attention. Now, look, this is the first time we've actually seen these men in court because that first case was a federal trial. And as you know, can't get cameras in there. But this is a state court case. They call themselves the Goon Squad, and it was their job to go out and dispense justice the way they wanted to. In fact, at one point, they even tried to sexually assault these men, and they used their tasers over and over again to see who had the most powerful taser.
I crawled here to this spot, and they started beating me here and tasing me. As you can see, blood spots and all. And my blood spots there.
I'm embarrassed. That was Eddie Parker and Michael Jenkins. When you think about Michael Jenkins, at one point, one of these officers who was admitted to this took out a gun, and they believed they had cleared the gun. They put it in his mouth and they pulled the trigger. He cleared the gun again and put it back in his mouth and pulled the trigger. At that point, it shot through his tongue and exited his neck. That's why he has trouble talking to this day. He'll be dealing with this for the rest of his life.
I hadn't heard that when I was talking about it yesterday. And all I'm thinking about is you're minding your business, and these 6 brutes, because they're big, burly, Jethro-looking mother freakers, bust through your door. And instead of arresting you, for whatever crime you supposedly, which we don't even know that there was a crime, for 2 hours. And I'm thinking about Emmett Till, who was also tortured in that barn for hours. 6 of them. I don't know how you tase somebody till they bleed, but there's blood droplets from the taser, right? You put a gun in the man's mouth and you pull the trigger because you hadn't emptied the clip, and you shoot him in his mouth. They tried to sexually assault, and I think of Abner Louimer, right? And so there's a pathology, Damario, there's a pathology here that permeates police departments, because Abner Louimer was in New York, right? With the mop or whatever, the plunger that Justin Volpe, and there were 4 officers in that case. 3 of them got it. They just sent Volpe away as if the other 3, somebody held him down. It's a grown man. No grown man is going to sit still while you stick something in his rectum and rupture his intestines. No one's going to sit still for that. He had to be held down, but everybody walked except for Justin Volpe, right? And his dad said to me, if he had just killed him, he would have been out because, dead men tell no tales. His father's a former officer. There's something in this policing, which is why I don't think it can be fixed. I think it's been broken from the beginning, this criminal justice system of ours. And it's because it was founded and rooted in the policing, or the not just the policing of Black bodies, the willful subjugation of Black bodies. It's like they want Black bodies to heal, to submit, right? It's not just about justice and arrest and crime. It's a submission. And the fact that they were going to rape this man, I'm just like,
I'm just saying, it's not even just a submission of our bodies. They want to submit our souls. They want to capture our entire being. And that's what the whole institution of slavery is about. And that's why this cannot be fixed, Karen. It cannot be reformed. It has to be a complete start over, because the very foundation of this country is the violence and the genocide of Black and indigenous people, which a lot of the indigenous people will look like you and I also. And so when we hear our political leaders say stuff like they'll hear a story like this and say, this is so un-American. That's not true. This is as American as it becomes, because this is what America is built upon, particularly the police departments, which are based upon the brutalization and to keep enslaved Africans and indigenous people in line. And it makes me think about, because I get real angry when I hear that type of what happened, because I have to deal with it every day in my law practice. It makes me think about Nellie Fuller, Dr. Nellie Fuller, one of my very favorite quotes, that if you don't understand racism, everything else will confuse you. Because we do understand racism and we do know our history, we know this happens all the time. And it's a benefit and a blessing that the DOJ, shout out to Christian Clark, I've been on her real hard about opening an investigation of the massacre, but I give her credit and the Department of Justice for prosecuting this case. I hope these people get the maximum amount of punishment, I just hope they get the maximum amount of punishment. I'll leave it at that.
I mean, but this is willful, right? And they call themselves the goon squads, much like the folk that killed Abner, not Abner Louimer, in the vestibule in the Bronx. Oh my goodness, 19 shots. They said No, not Sean Bell. That was that was another one. That was 50 shots. The first one, Diallo, Amadou Diallo. We own the night. Those cops said we own the night, right? They had a whole task force, right? There was the task force that killed our brother recently, who was blocks away from his mother's home. They had a name for themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
in
these things.
the blue dogs or the red dog. Here's the deal too, Karen. Those individuals need to be convicted, but the whole police department, they know this is going on.
Yeah.
They know about this. I got a buddy.
Six of them. Listen, Damario. They said on the evening of January 24th, 3 sheriff's deputies, they had pulled this brother over supposedly for drugs. Again, not armed. And they were in a group text together. And the group text said, "Are y'all available for a mission? Are y'all available for a mission?" Instead of knocking on the door, they kicked the door down. Surveillance cameras show that. So thank God for surveillance cameras, right? Because it would have been a situation where, my word against theirs. Traffic cop, you go to court, that the judge is never going to side with you, even if the cop is lying, right? So it's the same, right? In this system, because it's all a conspiracy. The prosecutors need the police officers. So they're in cahoots. The judges are, like everybody's kind of in on it. And it's just crazy. So they pull into the driveway of a 4-bedroom ranch-style home. Seems like a decent neighborhood. Did they torture these guys in for 2 hours? This is, the more I'm looking at this case and listening to that audio today, really, really triggered me. And I don't need to be triggered, but I don't need
audio.
it.
Listen to the audio is why, and I know you talked about this a lot just last week. This is why so many people were happy to see the Montgomery brawl. Because we hear and see about ourselves being brutalized on a daily basis, and these things happen, and they want to project upon us who they are, the violence that they have in their heart, the way they want to do things. Because if we were a tenth of violent as they try to project, every day there would be problems in this country, like it was Afghanistan or something like that. The overwhelming majority, that 95% of Black people living their lives, trying to make ends meet, raise their children, have a decent place to live. And yet these same folks who've been tormenting us for over 450 years, almost 500 years, are still doing it. And it's getting worse. And then one thing I want to say, Karen, about the Montgomery situation, I know why people felt really good about that, but it's going to be a backlash. And we need to be prepared for that. Because,
I said that.
White people watch that also, and they already are fetishizing about guns. They're already fetishizing about shooting us. So I want to warn our people to be careful and understand that it could be different next time. The people have guns, because that's something that they pray by them. They live by. They love guns in a way that we can't even understand. And I'm a gun owner, just to be clear. I'm here in Oklahoma.
We have the right. This has never been about people's right to bear arms or taking away people's right to bear arms. This has always been about this kind of militia mentality that, and more importantly, the Ahmaud Arbery's of the world. Like, we don't have the right to be in places.
Policing Black bodies.
Yeah, all the time. So they turned off their body cams, handcuffed these 2 men, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. They kicked them, waterboarded them, tased them, punched them, shot them, called them the N-word repeatedly. I mean, I know they probably thought they were going to die. Like, even on, for what?
We talk about RICO charges. There's no way in a small community in Mississippi that there are other people that knew this was happening, that were a part of this conspiracy, who knew these text messages was going on, and they have an affirmative duty under the Constitution to stop this type of activity. If they didn't do it, I would like to see those individuals investigated, those individuals actually charged, because those are the things that will really be a deterrent. That's why the charges against Trump, to go back there, is a real, that's a big deal, because there's so many other people involved in a conspiracy. So now you got to really be thinking about, okay, do I care that much? I want to be a part of this, or do I want to do the right thing and say, no, you guys, you got to shut this down, or I'm gonna have to drop a dime on you, because that's my duty as an officer. That's my duty as an elected official. You can't tell me this small town in Mississippi, people didn't know that what they call the goon squad had been doing this for years. You can't tell me that. I know how policing works here in America.
Of course they've been doing it for years. This didn't just happen. And, you know, it got good to them because they didn't think they could get caught. Right. To do all of that and not think that you're going to face any justice whatsoever. I just watched this horrible film that was recommended to me by one of our listeners who was tortured through it and wanted to torture me too, I guess. So no, they wanted my opinion. So I'm not gonna weigh in because I get it. I know why you wanted me to watch it, but it was soft and what was it called? Oh my goodness, I'm trying to black out on the actual soft and quiet. Yes, on Netflix.
I saw you post that. Like, who told me to watch this?
Yo, But when you think about the pathology of somebody that would do these horrific things, you know that it's in them to do it.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh,
they are.
I can't believe we're doing this. It's like, oh, we doing this. Okay, let's cover it up. Let's figure out how we go get out of it, you know, because we're gonna get out of it, you know, just gotta do away with the bodies, you know. It's like, oh my goodness, it's so crazy to me. They didn't even try to hide the bodies. They're like, all right, we did that and we're gonna walk on off.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, let the ambulance deal with it. 866-801-8255. If George Floyd had lived and there was no film of that, we wouldn't even know his name. And he still would have been tortured.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that makes George Floyd unique is not that he was brutalized and just savagely killed by a police officer. That happens every day around this country. It was one, that there was a pandemic, so the whole world was at home. And two, it did last for 9 minutes and people got to see that. And they were still enough that they really heard that. They really heard that man cry for his mother. They really saw his life go out of his body. Like, we watched that. And that is what made that unique and in that time. But this happens all over the place. Karen, as you know, I've represented several victims of police violence. I mean, my client, Joshua Harvey, was tased 27 times to death. I've had Terence Crutcher.
Wait, 27 times?
27 times to death. I mean, it was just it was a torture. They tortured him and he died. He had a cardiac arrest. My client, Monroe Bird, who was shot in the back as he was driving away, paralyzed from the neck down at 6'8", 21 years old. And then his insurance company, his parents' insurance company, they work for an ultra rich golf course here, and they refused to pay his medical bills because our DA didn't charge the white shooter who had weed in his system and on his body at the time of shooting Monroe. So the medical insurance said, hey, we don't know who was at fault. So he didn't get any medical care. He had to go and live in the living room of his mother, and he died within a month, paralyzed from the neck down. I could go on and on and on. These things happen every single day here in America.
She smiles and says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you're lusting is the one